Can we sit down right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, pretty quick. Are we supposed to sit at the front?
Yes.
Okay.
Come, yeah. Center stage. Like center stage.
Okay.
Sorry, we should have covered that beforehand. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us and for braving the weather to be here tonight. My name is Benjamin Johnson. I'm the events coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers here in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory, which is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As we listen to our speakers share their words today, may we also recognize the Indigenous stories that have been shared on this land since time immemorial. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of You Alive by Chelsea Coupal, published by Thistledown Press and featuring guest reader Christine Scarrow. Thank you so much to Chelsea, Christine, and Eric for being here this evening and for working with us to make this event happen. Just to note that this event is being live streamed, so there is a webcam off to our right, just be aware. Please take a moment to silence your phones as well. If you'd like to buy copies of You Alive, or we have Christine Scarrow's book, Only Human, up by the front. You can also find them on the signing table behind me. You're welcome to get your book signed before you purchase it. Just please, if you get it signed, please buy it. Thank you. Had some incidents recently, but it's okay. Finally, we will have a Q&A period following the reading. So please, I think Chelsea was saying she wants some really hard questions. So please think of some hard-hitting questions for our author afterwards. And now I will turn it over to Eric Anderson, our representative from Thistledown Press.
Round of applause. Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. This is an honor because yeah, I've known Chelsea for a long time, and Christine and I have been Facebook friends since Wednesday, so this is awesome. But my wife taught Christine's son, so we've got that connection, so that's really great. On behalf of Thistledown, I just want to thank the funders for Thistledown. So that includes Sask Arts, the Canadian Council for the Arts and the Government of Canada's program, and the Canada Book Fund. Now's the part where I get to introduce you, Chelsea.
Okay.
Okay. So she did give me a prepared introduction, so I'm going to read that, but then we're going to add some things at the end. So Chelsea's first poetry collection, Sedley, which is wonderful, was selected for an Indigo Exclusive edition and shortlisted for 3 Saskatchewan Book Awards. Her poetry has won the City of Regina Reading Award, been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, and appeared in more than a dozen Canadian publications, including Best Canadian Poetry. Fun facts about Chelsea. She's also a gifted photographer, especially when it comes to birds. Yep, love your birds. Chelsea has also swam very closely with dolphins in Hawaii. I remember that one year we trained swimming to so that you could train with the dolphins. So, yeah, that was fun. So she swam with dolphins. She's an incredible photographer. She was easily the most talented writer in our journalism magazine writing class. Karen, you're nodding, like without a doubt, the best writer. And then she went on to write amazing articles with the Regina Leader Post as well. She's married to a wonderful Irishman named Ken, and she has a beautiful daughter named Grace. And her new book of poetry is entitled You Alive, right there for the webcam people, and it's absolutely amazing. So it's an honor to be here introducing Chelsea. And then I get to introduce Christine Scarrow as well. So hi, Christine.
Hi.
Hi. She's the author of 4 young adult novels, and her fiction has been shortlisted and won numerous awards. She's also served as a mentor through the Writers Union of Canada and the MFA in Writing program at the University of Saskatchewan, where she holds an MFA in Writing, which is very impressive. She has also worked as a 5-year hospital writer-in-residence, as well as the writer-in-residence for the Saskatoon Public Library. Christine also teaches creative writing and communications classes at the post-secondary level, and her latest book is a collection of short stories called Only Humans. It's really, really good, and it's like dark and twisted in some parts, which I really think is awesome. So I know we're a cozy crowd here, but thank you for braving the weather. And now we get to listen to Chelsea and Christine read from their respective books. So Chelsea, I believe you're up. So round of applause for Chelsea, everybody.
Thank you, Eric, for that glowing introduction. Thank you so much for coming tonight, everyone. I know the weather is really poor. I also want to say a couple of things. I just want to thank Eric so much for hosting tonight, and Christine for joining me. Eric posted a little while ago on social media that we met in journalism school 18 years ago, and I was like, there's no way that's right. And then I was like, 2008 was in fact 18 years ago. So he was right. The one thing I wanted to say is back then, Eric spent a lot of time getting home to watch the TV series Lost. So sometimes you would say, hey, Eric, like, do you want to go for wings? And he'd be like, no, unfortunately, I got to go home and watch Lost. Because this was like before Netflix and Crave. And Eric really
You had your one chance to watch it.
yeah, you had to be there to watch it. And Christine and I met back in February 2020 at St. Peter's Abbey in Munster, Saskatchewan, at the very first writers' retreat that I ever went to. And I remember it really clearly because the writers there talked about that they had seen the coronavirus on the news. And I don't think at the time that we really had any idea about what was to come in the days and weeks and months ahead. So it just feels like a big period of transition that was happening there. But I remember at the retreat just having so much fun with Christine and laughing and drinking wine. And I actually haven't seen her since that retreat. But we've stayed in touch over social media, and I'm so happy she's here. You should buy her book, Only Human. The other thing that I forgot to mention about Eric, because Eric gave me such a glowing introduction that I'm going to pivot back to Eric. I also want to mention Eric is a really talented journalist. He worked for CBC for a number of years and is now doing great work for Sherbrooke Community Centre as their communications leader, and also hosts a really incredible podcast called YXC Underground, where he shares stories about people living and working in Saskatoon and the good work that they're doing for and in their communities. So thanks again, Eric, for being here, and to Christine as well. I'm going to read some poems from the collection. You Alive. How do we know what we'll hold in our arms and what will be our ghosts? A flight of pain, sharp and slow. Our bodies will be marked. Crumpled petal stomach skin, stretch marks, ragged nipples. Is it selfish or unselfish to live only for ourselves, to bring more bodies in to a crowded world? And maybe we're not worth repeating, and they might not be anything like us. The way the world is mean to most. The way we remember our worst mistakes and worry they'll either find out or repeat them. They don't have to love us their whole lives. They don't have to stay, and they don't have to visit. They don't have to take care of us when we're old. They don't have to like us or the clothes we buy them or how we brush their hair. They will say horrible things and never apologize. They will lie again and again in big ways and small. They will sneak girls into the house, and we'll have to say goodbye to these girls rumpled and hungover, mascara smudged around bloodshot eyes at breakfast. They'll throw up in bed and run fevers and break their collarbones playing hockey, and once it's healed, they'll play again and break bones again. They might put us in a home. They might wish we'd hurry up and die so they get their inheritance already. They could die before us. They could be anything else, any place else. They could be a daughter. Dark hair, colicky, small walnut fists, fingertips plump as swollen sweet pea seeds, the nails thin as the skin of the shell. Dear Ken, on the walk home from the bar near your apartment, moon spills into melted snow lying in the street. I get down to lap it up, make you laugh. You left a lush place, green and shining with rain and the constant rub of ocean against its edges, for a land flat and dry, where the cold takes hold for months, until the water's frozen still and the branches are bare. Everything heavy and quiet as a last breath. You're used to people not understanding you here. When we first meet, I guess. Are you talking about the Olympics? No, I'm talking about Limerick, the city. Sometimes we go to our friend's apartment, the one right above us, for one last drink, just 5 or 6 of us, and dance in cigarette smoke, our eyes damp pink, to a song about staying out late. too drunk to think of tomorrow, or Monday, or the grave, still aware faintly, these moments drain away too, slip through the grate like our youth. The first time you cook for us, you make spaghetti bolognese. I don't know what bolognese is. It sounds like a breed of cat. You ask what we call it. Meat sauce. There's no room for a kitchen table, so we hold every meal in our laps on the couch. You are slim as a cattail. Trails of freckles on your arms blend together like the thin tracks sparrows make in dust. You have two homes now, and I know you will always long for the old one, for an island full of rain and rocks and hills, seagulls shrieking overhead, strong smell of fish, saltwater wind, roar of waves breaking against cliffs, the living fog, the thickest mist. St. Peter's Abbey, Munster, Saskatchewan. Some say don't feed the birds, but it's hard not to when they land in the palm of your hand, plump as plums. February, late winter. An evergreen curtain, bare branch web, slow snowfall, dishwater sky. Flakes melting on my face. I want even more birds cupped in my hands. I want to reach out and grab them before they take off. Splash of wings. I want to feel their bones, the wheat husk whisper of them, pin-thin cages beneath black and white feathers, matchstick houses or hyacinth heads. I want their heartbeats in my hands, that swell of belly, warm smooth as ripples on ponds in summer against my cheek, and pine cones crackling quiet, falling through branches, landing soft in the snow. The birds flurry away, seed in beak, to eat where I can't see them. My skin in the wind is dry. My eyes water, my lips split at the center, bleed. And the monks ring the bells. And the chickadees sing in the trees. And I pray another bird, and then another lands, gentle, steady as a song. July. I walk a graveyard pregnant. That morning, my backyard smells the same as my grandmother's. Cedar planters, peonies, dew. So I drive to the veterans cemetery and park and walk the paths. Take a picture of my grandparents' graves side by side. Poplars and robins, chickadees and spruce. A meadowlark on a fence post at the edge of a canola field. Birdsong I don't know. Mock orange and clouds wisp thin, swirl of fins. Oil wells dot summer fields. Steel grasshopper bodies nod up and down in place. The ducklings are almost grown. They look more like their mother than themselves. On wild nights, we woke up in different places to the same text. You alive? There's something about wandering the rows of the dead as you feel the unborn against you. I was told not to write soul in a poem. But what if you witnessed some beginning or end, blood or birth or death, or at least the shape and shade of those things? What if you felt your bones dislocate, your hips shift, and your soul somehow slid outside your body? You probably couldn't hear it, but maybe for a second you saw it, small as a deer mouse, before it slipped away, a ripple in the grass. What we leave behind. The taste of his lips, mostly spit and mint. The unusual coolness of that night in August, the stars stunningly clear. The heft of his body next to yours, and you like how he makes you feel, short, small. How you vomit in your bed after a night of partying at Strawberry Lake, more slew than lake, and sleep in stomach acid vodka stench, the tips of your hair damp with it. You'll do anything not to wake your parents. The time you wake up on a beach, soft sound of breath and Pacific Ocean waves smoothing the shore, pale wet, rose coral morning sky, conch shells, plumeria, and a boy from California lies beside you, his blonde hair full of bonfire and marijuana smoke, sand freckling his arms, his face. When you drive to your boyfriend's farm, late summer afternoon, same drive 1,000 times, he asks you to pick up a pizza from town on the way, and the sun pours so warm through the window, you shiver. And you know, it's the last time you'll make that drive. And you're going to tell him that. And you call your friend to say you can't stop crying. The way a person, eyes closed and mouth open, dying and on morphine, will gulp and gulp at the air, never quenched and never swallowing, their lips the most chapped you've ever seen. Your aunt's cabbage rolls, her borscht, your mother's tiger lilies, swarming, freckled, full of fire. The lady beetles blend into them. your mother's lilacs, the neatly mown lawn, the empty lots behind it, the crow's call, the happy family dogs and the matted farm dogs, the cattle, the canola, the lentils, the scent of insecticide, the gravel, the wild rabbits, the sky, the sky, the sky. December. The table is narrow. I wonder if I could fall off. The nurses ask what music I want. I didn't know I could choose. Want us to put on some country? Fleet Foxes. Play Fleet Foxes. Floxes? Fleet Foxes. The room shines bright silver as bells. I stare at the ceiling, see red reflected in steel. There is a moment when, though I don't see her, I know she's in the room. Nobody says so. Nobody says anything. But the air is static, seconds before thunder. The pressure in my pelvis stops. Just music, heart rate, the silence between. And then she screams. Thank you. I'll just say again, thank you to Thistledown Press for publishing this collection. Thank you to Mariah for all the work that you've done in promoting the book. And thank you to McNally Robinson for hosting us tonight. I will pass it over to Christine.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you, Chelsea, for allowing me to be part of this day. Like you mentioned, we met at St. Pete's, which is a popular place for retreats for writers, which I highly recommend. And I fell in love with her immediately upon meeting her and had a wonderful week. And yeah, like she said, we haven't seen each other since then. And yet she feels like someone that I always think of and celebrate. And it's really cool how when writers bond together in places, how they just become a part of your heart. So yeah, it's really great. And nice to meet you too, Eric. So thank you very much. Since Wednesday when we became Facebook friends. So I'm going to read some excerpts from one of my short stories. So just there'll be parts that I skip just for brevity from this collection, Only Human, which came out I think towards the end of March. So this short story is called Thief. Martin Thompson, this is Constable Lee Swain. We need you to come down to Safeway to pick up your wife. Eleanor? What's happened? The color drained from Martin's face. Is she okay? She'd been fine when he dropped her off to shop while he went home to let the dog out. You need to get down here immediately. I'll be right there. Martin had barely finished his sentence before ending the call. He drove their Buick as though it were a Ferrari through the sleepy suburban streets of Saskatoon. He hadn't even changed from church. His soul-worn, spit-shined leather Oxfords kept slipping on the gas pedal as his foot, frantic, pressed the car for more. Countless scenarios blazed through his mind. What on earth could have taken place? Eleanor must be terrified, he thought, all alone at the store. She'd always been uncomfortable around police officers, jittery, even though she had nothing to hide. At the Safeway, the vehicle lurched forward as Martin slammed the brakes. He'd barely set the car to park when he noticed a young officer, probably a rookie, standing at the front door. He bolted toward him, his uncertain legs gaining a momentum they hadn't seen for decades. Mr. Thompson? Yeah, that's me, Martin wheezed. He followed the officer inside. His eyes, wild, scanned the store, his stomach wrenched. The officer led him to a glass office space next to the customer service desk. After a series of doors, they found Eleanor sitting on a metal chair next to another officer and the store manager. Eleanor, are you okay? Martin's voice cracked. He felt his heart slow a little when he saw her unharmed. It took a moment for him to realize that she was in handcuffs. His lips trembled. Handcuffs? What's going on here? Hello, Mr. Thompson. I'm Joe, the store manager. Our loss prevention officer, Dale, witnessed your wife shoplifting today. Martin's eyebrows rose. He absorbed the words for a minute, slapped his knee, and broke into rolling laughter. The officer and the store manager exchanged glances. Did George put you up to this? Their friend George was the manager at a different location. Had he set this up somehow? George Griffin, the manager at the store on 8th Street. He's a real prankster. But this is going too far. I'm sorry, sir, the store manager knit his brows. This situation's real, I'm afraid. Martin waited for someone to interject with the real explanation of why he was here, but the room remained silent. Martin's eyes searched the room, certain he was on one of those hidden camera shows. This had to be a prank. There was a gross misunderstanding of some sort. His quiet, sweet wife was no criminal. Of that, he was sure. We found these items in her sweater. The manager pointed to a pack of Energizer batteries and gold foil-wrapped triangles of brie in a red mesh bag. Martin looked at Eleanor. Her steel gray eyes met his. Her gaze bored into his so deeply he looked away. For once, he did not know how to read her. He could see the young officer sizing him up. He was happy he hadn't changed into his regular Sunday loungewear as he planned to before he got the call. He didn't want to come off as a lazy bum who didn't provide for his family, a man who petitioned his wife to steal cheese. Martin had spent 30 years toiling at a job he'd hated. He'd made sure that they were taken care of in their golden years. We're prepared to let her go, the officer said. The manager does not wish to press charges. On the condition she's to stay out of the store, the manager finished. We'll be posting a notice to look out for her. Martin nodded numbly as they set Eleanor free. He thought he'd known embarrassment before, when David Pranson pounced him on the baseball field in front of their grade 8 class, when he'd shit himself in the car on the way to a business meeting, and when his dentures fell out during his retirement speech. Though nothing could have prepared him for the lurch in his gut he felt now. That won't be necessary, Martin said. But how could he say that with confidence? Mrs. Thompson, the store manager waited for her to acknowledge what he'd said, but Eleanor breezed past them all and exited the store, leaving the men standing in the office and Martin dumbfounded. Eleanor Grace, you did not. Martin's teeth ground together. His jawbone danced in his cheek. There was an electricity in the car Eleanor had never experienced before. What if I did? She challenged him. How could you? We have more than enough money. His voice trailed off. His hands shook despite his white knuckle grip on the steering wheel. Eleanor wasn't sure she'd ever seen him so mad. When they entered their house, Martin went straight to the basement. He needed some distance from Eleanor. He could hear her pulling out the frying pan for their Sunday lunch. They were far past their regular lunchtime, and he didn't have the appetite for food now anyhow. Martin sat in the dim rec room. The only light that filtered in came from the slats of the basement window blind. He replayed the scene in his mind over and over. What bugged him most was Eleanor's reaction to it all. She showed no remorse or embarrassment. In fact, she'd almost looked proud of it. Martin stared at the photo gallery of their family on the wall. He glanced at the built-in bookcases that lined the other side of the room. The mismatched colors on the spines of the titles jumped out at him. For the first time, he saw his home in an entirely new light. Had those books been purchased? How about the picture frames? Were the coasters on their coffee table stolen? How long had this been going on? How much of his life was built by deceit and missing items from local stores or perhaps someone else's home? When Eleanor called him up for lunch, he found her humming to the country tune on the radio. Her eyes were bright and playful. Martin's mouth fell open. He was flummoxed. Had she gone crazy? Was she sick? He'd heard of this kind of thing happening to people before an Alzheimer's diagnosis. Strange behavior caused by some underlying health concern. He would call the doctor first thing in the morning. Martin slid into the captain chair at their dining room table and waited for Eleanor to seat herself before filling his plate. Batteries, cheese cubes, Martin said between mouthfuls. Eleanor saw beads of sweat gathering at his temples, threatening to stream down his face. Eleanor, you can't be serious. Martin rubbed his eyes. He blinked a few times as though the answers he wanted might suddenly materialize. Eleanor sat straight in her chair, her legs pointed elegantly to one side. She kept her face blank. Have I not always provided for you? Have you not been able to buy what you've needed? It was true. Although Martin took care of the finances, she knew that they'd never lacked. I mean, you could bloody well buy the whole store if you wanted to. But these acts of daring had nothing to do with money. It was shocking how easily things could be taken. People were careless with their things. Their attention was easily diverted. Eleanor sat motionless. I don't even know if the plate I'm eating on was obtained legally. Martin's voice was bitter. Eleanor considered telling him that the plate was, but his fork wasn't, then thought better of it. I think after lunch we sit down and have a real conversation about this. I'm headed to Judy's after lunch. I'm helping with her garage sale, remember? Martin choked on his bacon. He coughed and took a quick sip of water to help it down his constricting throat. What if she came home with a trunk load of stuff? Or worse, what if she came home with a wad of cash she didn't have before? Surely she wouldn't steal from Judy. I'll drive you, Martin said. Maybe Ed will need a hand. Ed's gone golfing. Well, maybe people need a hand carrying things to their vehicles. I think I should go too. Eleanor set down her fork. I'm fine going on my own, Martin. When lunch was over, she cleaned the kitchen and he watched her put her blue sneakers on. He was pleased. He recognized them as the ones they purchased at the mall together recently. He knew those ones had been paid for. His stomach clenched again. Martin hated this newfound feeling of distrust. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, hello. Okay, that's good. Do you guys enjoy doing this, like reading your poetry and your stories, and do you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's okay.
I'd rather read than public speak. So as soon as you get to just read your words, I
Yeah.
always find that part way easier. Like you
Okay.
can just settle into yourself,
Yeah,
when you're
like,
reading.
you really got into it.
Thanks.
Yes. That's great. So if any of you have questions, like please just like raise your hand and because I want to open it up. I was very excited for this, so I probably wrote down too many questions. I've 15 for Chelsea and 14 for Christine. So yes, Chelsea just said that's too many. It is. So we're not going to get through them all because McNally is only open till, how long do we have that? Until 8?
Until 8, yeah.
That's got plans tonight. So, but if any of you have any questions at all, please just track us down or something. Can I start with you, Chelsea? For those that don't know, Chelsea's latest book it's structured by like January, February, March, like months on a calendar. Why, like, where did that idea come from?
Honestly, that idea came really from my editor, Jennifer Still. I should thank Jen actually more often at these events, but Jen lives in Winnipeg, so I haven't seen her, and I've actually never met her in person. We did all of the editing kind of online over like FaceTime and over
Really?
email. Yeah,
You've never met her?
not in person, no.
Wow.
Yeah, but so there's a poem in the collection called Notes on a Farmhouse Calendar, and she suggested, what if this poem, what if we kind of blew it up and it became like a framework for the entire collection? Like, what if we broke up all of these stanzas that go month and month and it served as like these anchor points for the collection? And I was like, oh, I love that idea. Like, that's a great idea. And so I just did that and then kind of gave it back to her. And she was like, I think these sections need to be stronger. Like, I don't think they can just live as these few lines that were in this original poem. And, do you have anything else that you could add to them? And I was like, well, yeah, actually I have a lot of stuff on my phone about like pregnancy and postpartum that I could maybe throw in there. And she's like, yeah, let's like just play around and we'll like see where it goes. And so then, yeah, though I feel like that sort of really evolved almost the feel and the tone of the entire collection. But that really started out with her idea. And then I was like, but I still want the Notes on a Farmhouse Calendar poem. So then I just created sort of an entirely different like Notes on a Farmhouse Calendar poem that appears at the end of the collection. But the calendar sections were really her idea. And she also really pushed me on the formatting of those poems too, which I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have done on my own. She said, what if the poems felt more like a calendar? Like, what if you played with the space on the page a little more? And like, what if it felt like blockier? Like, what if it just felt more like a calendar? And so I kept sending her back versions. I was like this? Just like, I don't know. I don't think so. Like, it's not there yet. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then finally I kind of landed on like, what about this? And she was like, yeah, let's sit with that for a while. And then that's how it ended up.
Is it hard though, like to accept that kind of feedback when in your mind it's like, oh, I think I've got something here, and she's like, no, not yet. Like, keep working at it. Like, do you ever reach a point where you're like, no, like this is good. Like, let's go with it.
No, like
No.
she had such great ideas and such great instincts.
Yeah.
Like I kind of trusted her, and I think I kind of didn't feel sure about it either,
Oh, okay.
because I was just playing around and experimenting. And you know, but you kind of have deadlines and stuff, so it's like, well, this is where it's at now. Like I'll just send it back, and you know, it was like, yeah, I think we could keep trying. And I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Does that connect then? There's a really cool part in the back of Chelsea's book where there's acknowledgements, and like I didn't realize that there's one part where you say poems, some in drastically different versions and with different titles appeared, and then in all these wonderful publications. But like for some of these poems, and like they're living things, aren't they? Like you're still developing them. Like how do you know when a poem is done, Chelsea?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because you could just work on them forever, really.
Yeah.
And you know, I actually had this conversation with Jen a little bit, because she's like, you know, you're gonna edit the poems your whole life. And she's like, sometimes, you know, now when I do readings of older collections, I just read it the way that I want it written on the page now. And it might be slightly different than what's printed in the collection. Yeah, because I kind of said to her, like, you know, we'd be getting down to like the manuscripts due in a week or in a few days. And I'm like, I just noticed this. I hate this phrase. Like, why is it like this? Like, why did I write it like that? And, you know, there's always something to kind of all of a sudden latch onto and be like, I can't believe I didn't notice that. I can't stand that line break. And there's always like things that you'll stumble on that at a different part in your life, you think like, oh, I would have written that differently. But at some point, obviously, with publishing, you have to just call it done.
Yeah.
It's done when you say it's done.
Yeah. Christine, are you the same way? Like with some of your earlier novels, like do you, when you're looking at them, are you like, oh, I would change? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But, and just to say before I answer that, like stylistically, I think the choices made in that book are incredible. I love hearing that as a calendar. I didn't know that was the thing, but how it's presented, like, yeah, it looks really cool in your book. So yeah, yeah. And for that, I think like my first book, Throwaway Girl, was actually the first manuscript I ever saw to completion ever. So I always had like many writers, stacks of unfinished manuscripts in different stages of development. And it was the first time I ever like said to my husband, I just want to take a few months and see, can I actually finish a book, right? And then did. And as my story goes, I was so fortunate that I looked for an agent first, and managed to sign with an agent like when I sent the book out, and then it got picked up pretty quickly. So I was very, very fortunate. But that being said, yeah, when I go back and read things, yeah, I mean, and I think that's a wonderful thing, because then that means I'm learning and growing as a writer, which is what I always want to be doing. Like, I hope I'm not the same writer 10 years from now that I am now, right? And so I think there's something really awesome about that it's almost like a progression of your abilities and where you're at in life. Like Chelsea's first collection, Sedley, you know, being like coming of age and leaving small town life, which I adored, and then now you're into motherhood and you know, different aspects. So they're almost like time capsules of your life, I think. Yeah.
When did you know that you wanted this collection to be short stories? Because we were talking before we started. Oh, thank you, Chelsea. About like in some of these stories, I wanted more. Like I wanted to see where the characters went. But I was having lunch with my cousin Troy today, and I was telling him about your book, and he's like, "Oh, it's like a choose your own adventure at the end of the story." And I was like, "Yeah, it kind of is actually." Yeah. It's very insightful, Troy. But yeah, like what was it about short stories that made you think, yeah, I want this to be a collection?
So what ended up happening is actually this is Only Human is a big part of what my creative portion of my thesis was when I was doing my MFA in writing. And so when I got into the MFA in writing program, I knew I wanted to challenge myself in other genres. So I was being asked, after like writing predominantly YA fiction, for years was, and dabbling in some other genres, but I was being asked to like mentor and judge contests and do things more. And I didn't feel confident in my abilities necessarily to give like good actionable feedback to something like poetry or other things. So that was my goal, was to hopefully become a more well-rounded writer. And when I started my MFA, then I knew that I was going to go outside of my comfort zone to tackle something else. So I fell in love with short stories during the master's, and it became that I'm going to go down that path. And so because I kind of have a social work psychology background before my writing career, it kind of felt like a natural thing that my subject matter would always kind of stay gritty and social issues and things that like, yeah, the human experience, I suppose.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful stories. Chelsea, you were talking about like looking back through poems and looking at lines and thinking, oh, I could have written that better, or I could have tweaked that. But there are some amazing lines in this. There's so many amazing words. I have a couple I wrote down, like, so good. So good. You did. You did. So I know this will probably make you uncomfortable, but I don't care. I'm gonna just read a couple. Like, there's the one poem is called "The Lives We Didn't Choose or Didn't Get the Chance to," and there's this one part where it says, Chelsea writes, "Walk through the slow sadness of November, anticipate the weight of snow in silence. Wait, exhale, berries blaze red against bare branches, greens peeled off the trees, naked limbs claw at a coffin lit sky." Like, holy cripes, that's so good. And so when you're, this might sound like a silly question, but when you're writing and you've written, like, is there a part of you you're like, oh, that's good. Like, I'm happy with that. And you can build off of that. Like, does that ever pop into your mind? Like, oh, I kind of nailed this one.
Maybe I'll say this is some poems come easier than others.
Okay.
So maybe I'll just say that like some of the poems in the collection I wrote more quickly or more easily than other words. Like some poems I feel like you take a crack at it and it's like, I don't think it's working. And you either make a choice of, I'm going to kind of throw that away and start again, or I'm going to keep working at it. And sometimes it's like, it's the 10th draft where you're like, yeah, I think this is better or getting somewhere, but it's just like, there was nothing really easy about drafting it. But occasionally, like the poems kind of come out like in kind of a single sitting, and they don't change that much from that first draft to the end. So I would almost say like that like rare occasion is where it's kind of like where it kind of comes together almost in one sitting, where you kind of have a feeling like, I don't think I'm going to edit this that heavily, and that doesn't happen very often. But there's like maybe a couple of poems that kind of, to be honest, maybe I'll just say the two poems in the collection that are set actually at St. Peter's Abbey, the one that I read, St. Peter's Abbey, Munster, Saskatchewan, I can remember writing it at that writing retreat in February 2020, like while I was there. And it came like pretty close to like what the final draft was.
Wow.
And then there's another poem in there because I actually, funny enough, so St. Peter's Abbey will always like be very special to me in a way, probably because I actually found out I was pregnant at an individual writers retreat at St. Peter's Abbey, at the last one I ever was at November 2023. And then I sat down during that retreat and wrote the poem Genesis, that's about like finding out I was pregnant at St. Peter's Abbey. So those two poems like happened, like were fairly like I don't want to say easy, but came more quickly than a lot of other poems. I don't think I answered your question, but
no, I think you did. I think you did. So the ones that where I commented, so good, those didn't come easy.
Yeah, those might have been a few drafts. Okay. Yeah, those might have been a few drafts.
Yeah. Christine, does it take a few drafts for you as well, or does it sort of flow pretty easily, or how does it work for you?
I would say it's sort of the same as Chelsea, where like some scenes, some things come easier than others, and you feel like, okay, that was great, and others is like any writer often feels like you get to the parts where you are stunted and you stop and you don't know how to push forward and move forward. And so obviously, there's always some things that come sooner than others. Writers are notoriously hard on themselves though, to say like, oh, this sucks, and when you're writing and thinking it's not good enough. And I always challenge writers to like hold on to their writing even when they think it's not great, because you never know down the line when you might pull it out again or use it for something else or something. And often, like, I'll look back at stuff that I stashed from a long time ago that I remember beating myself up over, and then being like, I wrote that, like, hey, that's not bad, and like being able to do that. So I think could be surprise in that too, because when you're in it, you're just sometimes in so deep that you can't see anymore what you're doing, and we're like notoriously feeling like imposter syndrome, or that it's you're just hard on yourself.
Yeah. I've interviewed musicians that are like that too, where they say like I had a demo from a while back and I thought it was just rubbish, and then they came back to it maybe like years later and thought, oh, like there's a melody or a hook in there that eventually becomes a song. And yeah. Oh yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, D. Hobbsbawm Smith is watching from online.
We have a question online.
We have a question online.
Oh,
yeah,
guys.
A question and several compliments, actually. So, if I may,
Chelsea takes compliments.
Congratulations. Dee loved hearing pasta bolognese in a poem. Brava for charting the physicality of pregnancy so viscerally. And her question for you is, who are your most important and favorite poetic influences?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I feel like I'm really heavily influenced by a lot of Saskatchewan poets, or poets who like grew up or lived and kind of write from that prairie perspective at one time. Like, I didn't really start writing poetry until university, and when I got really interested in it is when I went to the university library. I was in a creative writing class and I was asked to write poetry, and I pulled all these collections off the shelf, and the collections were by writers like Lorna Crozier and Catherine Lawrence and Judith Krause. And I remember just being like really surprised that people were publishing who were living in Saskatchewan and writing about that experience. Like, it just wasn't something I'd ever encountered before. So I do feel like those early influences really heavily. Sherry Benning is someone else I should mention, that like, some of those collections I like obsessed over, because I just felt like I was reading about kind of like rural Saskatchewan for the first time, and it wasn't like a place that had been written about in, like, I wasn't aware of it. And I think I also just had this belief that in order to publish books you had to live in like New York City or Toronto and get an agent. Like, I didn't realize there was this other work that was happening. So yeah, I think like, and a lot of like my professors were really big influences on me too. Like Jerry Hill is a poet. He was like my first English 100 professor who kind of like sparked that interest really in writing. And Randy Lundy and Medri Purdom are some others. So yeah, and like over the years I've discovered other poets, including like American poets who've influenced me. Like, I really love like Maggie Smith and some other like really really well known, really popular poets. I love Mary Oliver. But yeah, I feel like those poets who are writing from kind of like that through that prairie lens like really influenced me early on in my writing.
Do we have any questions from the audience at all?
Daughter's name based on your experience with your writing at the writers retreat?
No, like her name Grace. No, I'll actually though share where her name came from. Her name is Grace, and Grace is the name of my paternal grandmother's sister. She was born actually in 1924, so exactly 100 years before Grace was born, but she passed away in childhood at age 11 of a thing that doesn't happen anymore called mastoiditis. I probably mispronounced that. It's basically an ear infection that spreads to the bone. And yeah, her name was Grace, and that's where we just sort of felt like this connection to like kind of being this like name that was in the family. And so yeah, that's where it comes from.
Thanks, Karen.
My real question was actually, just in terms of your writing process, are you guys writing about, I guess more for Chelsea, but maybe too. Are you writing about scenarios that you are actively living through, or how much of your writing is calling back to distant memories? Like I think about the poem that you read of, you know, your encounter with a Californian on the beach and then having to break up with your boyfriend. Is that a poem that you would have written in the moment, or is that something that you're delving into years later?
I think for me, like it's both. Like that poem in particular, What We Leave Behind, was written years later. But I'd say it's always like maybe a bit of both, like because some of the like motherhood stuff that's in the collection, like I wrote that fairly recently because my daughter's not 2 yet, she'll be 2 in July. And that a lot of that stuff came out in the editing process because it wasn't even really in a poetry form. It was like in notes in my phone, but I was like, I think we could add this in. But so it's like a mix of, I'd say some of the stuff is kind of what I'm going through in the moment, but there's always a bit of like reflection too, I find there's like topics that I kind of like come back to or obsess over. Like one of the things, even in university, I already noticed this like kind of desire to like keep almost writing not the same thing, but I remember I went to my prof and said, like, I don't think I have enough material. Like, I feel like I keep writing the same thing over and over again. And he's like, it's okay, Chelsea, we all are. And so then it made me think that like, yes, like all writers kind of have these little like obsessions or like things that they, for some reason, like keep revisiting, even if it's something they've written about it before. It's like you're trying to get it right, but you'll never really get it perfectly right, but you'll like keep trying.
Can I just build off of that question from Karen and from the online question as well? But like this collection is so raw and you're so honest in it. At any point did you think like, am I sharing too much? Like in terms of like it's out there. People can like read like I think what you've written is so brave of you to do because you deal with some very, very like challenging topics that like I think of consent as one of them. And like it's powerful stuff, Chelsea, but like you are laying it all out there. Like at any point did you think, oh, is this too much? Or were you comfortable with everything?
I mean, yeah, when I was writing it, I was really comfortable with it because it's just me as the reader, or maybe one other reader, right? Like I think of, I took part in Sage Hill, for instance, and I remember writing, like the poem you just referenced, I know I wrote that draft kind of while I was at Sage Hill, so it was just, the instructor who was going to kind of read that early draft. So, I would say it's almost down the road that I think more about it, but you can't think about it in the moment of drafting it. You know, down the road though, like after you sign the contract with the publisher, then it's like, wait, what did I write again? And I was like, oh, that's gonna be embarrassing for me.
I don't think it's embarrassing at all. I think it's courageous what you've done.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to make light of it, but there was a tweet a long time ago that I read that was like, no one ever told me how embarrassing it was going to be a writer. And I think about that tweet a lot because I think there is something about that. Like it feels really personal and really vulnerable. And, but like when it comes down to it, it's like, what is poetry about? It's like, well, you're just telling the truth and you're, being kind of as honest as you can. And, you should say what is difficult to say. And, it's maybe not stuff that it just comes down to telling the truth, right? Yeah.
Christine, was that something that you had to learn through your writing as well in terms of like, it's all right to share what's going on in your mind, but also in your heart as well, in terms of just being open and honest with readers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think probably it harkens back again to like having always been interested in like the human experience and the stuff that we go through. For me, like writing's always been the way that I best encode the world and how I make sense of it. So for me, that's how it's become almost like I don't want to say I'm trying to like do social justice from it or anything, but it is how I for sure try to make sense of the world when it feels sometimes overwhelming. And so and you do, like any writer, when you're putting your words out on the page, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, any genre, you are kind of bearing parts of your soul, and that's why I think we're always so scared to share our writing with others, because, right, there's this idea that, like, oh, what if they don't like it, or what's the feedback going to be, and it's so important that we take that risk and do so, especially here in Saskatchewan, where our writing community is so strong and so supportive. Like, we just have an amazing writing community in Saskatchewan. And so there are many resources for people who want to write, and yeah, it's risky, and yes, it's scary, but I think I know when I started to finally reach out and do those things, because I was like a closet writer and shy for many, many years, and wouldn't, like, it just was a part of myself I didn't share. And as soon as I started to do that, like, I started to learn and grow so much more. And yeah, there's a bravery, I think, that comes with that, like, your voice matters, and that your stories matter, and that you're intentional about, like, what you're writing and what you want to put out in the world. And we write for ourselves first, as you should always, and like Chelsea said, yeah, after you're like, oh yeah, other people are going to read this, and you have to come to terms with, not everyone's going to like what you've written, or connect with it, and that's okay too.
I know we're running out of time, and I've barely made a dent in my list of 29 questions. So I know there might be some aspiring writers in the audience, or maybe online as well. I was wondering if each of you could maybe share a piece of advice for anyone who is maybe starting off their writing career, or is maybe interested in putting pen to page, or typing, or your notes app as well. Like, any advice for them?
I would say just read as much as you can. Reading comes first. Read what you love, and read what you love over again, and like study your favorite texts, but read widely too. Like, that's, I think reading is the starting point, and just write as much as you can too. And I don't, sometimes I think we hear like goals around like word counts and writing this often, and I think that can sometimes be unrealistic. So I'd say, like, be easy on yourself. It's okay if you don't write every day. It's okay if you don't meet a certain word count. Just write when you can, and sometimes it might be just a few minutes in the notes app of your phone, and that's okay. But like, capturing kind of what you can, or jotting down ideas, or even an image or a title, like, is all kind of working toward writing. Or looked at another way, maybe journaling too, like, is another way to kind of get into it. Like, I know when I was in high school, for instance, like, I didn't see myself as a writer, but looking back, it's like I wrote a journal in my journal every day from like grade 7 to 12. And I actually kind of think that, like, maybe that is almost like a bit of a training ground, because I looked back at them actually, like, not that long ago. And when I was 12, the entries were so boring, and it was because it was like, and then I ate my pizza pocket at lunchtime. Then I returned to school, and at one point, like, I was like, oh my goodness. But then by like grade 11, grade 12,
you were discovering that you were a journalist early on in terms of chronicling. And then this
an
happened.
archive
And then
of like exactly what happened at school that day. And then, but when I got to the later entries, they were like a bit more entertaining. It was like just the highlights, like just like 2 funny things that like happened or something. Yeah. So it was like, I kind of stripped to, it's like I trained myself. It's like, I don't want to spend 45 minutes writing this entry. I just got to get to the highlights.
Get to the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't bury the lead.
Yes, don't bury the lead. Yeah. The pizza pocket was really good. Just start with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's hilarious. Yeah. Same thing with the Chelsea saying, like, yeah, read lots. Every writer I know reads a lot as well. For people who want to be writing, or have that dream to write, I'm also like Chelsea, where as a kid I didn't really think that was a viable option for me living in Saskatchewan, and I just thought, like, you had to be like in Hollywood or something to do that, right? It doesn't, I never knew anyone who was, so you couldn't see a path from here to there, right? And so what I would say beyond reading is, another thing is, like Chelsea says, like, some people are really diligent about a writing practice. I am not one of them. I've never had the time or space or energy in raising kids and all the things, and that's not viable for me. So again, I'll try and write in tiny pockets. There's actually a really prolific YA author named Eric Walters, who I met at a conference, who happened to say that he wrote even at like red lights and stuff. He had a driver. I should probably say that. But like he learned to write in pockets of time. And back then I used to think, oh, the house had to be clean, this had to be done, everything had to be perfect before I could sit down and write. Well, like that time never comes. So I trained myself to be able to write with noise and things going on around me in small pockets. And if I can't be writing, I'm always trying to do something to advance the needle in terms of what I feel is nurturing my writing life. So like Julia Cameron has this thing called artist dates that you do, right? So I consider that I'll go and like go watch movies because I love the stories behind them, right? Or go to an art exhibit or go to readings and book launches to like watch other people living their creative dreams and accomplishing them. And then that hopefully feeds where I'm at as well, right? So I'm always trying to, or like, you know, attend a workshop, read writing magazines or articles or things online, and just like always something to feel like I'm, you know, doing something to nurture that side of my life. So yeah, I highly encourage that. And yeah.
Those are really wonderful answers. That was great. Any other questions from the audience before we go? Ben, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all good.
Okay, Ben's all good. Okay. Thank you all so much for coming. Christine, it was so nice to meet you. Yeah, and the collection is amazing. Stories are wonderful. And it was so nice to meet you. And Chelsea, we're all just so proud of you. And
So proud.
So proud. And you're like, let's just get this over with. But no, we're so proud, and it's an amazing collection. So if you want to buy, can we buy your book too? Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And they'll sign, just make sure that if you want them to say write your name, that you actually purchase the book.
I can't emphasize that enough.
Yes, and I don't believe that we even have to emphasize that. So yeah, you learn something new every day. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching online. And yeah, great job, you two.